Hi, everyone. It's Kelly from The Hub, here today with our friend Brittany from LHOP. Now, Brittany is not going to be talking about LHOP things today. So you're wondering, why is she here? Well, Brittany is more than just her job, as we all are. So now you're wondering, why is she here? Here we go. Several years ago, Brittany decided with her, was he your fiance then, or was he your husband officially then? Or was he your
He was my husband
then?
officially.
He
No,
was
we
your
were
husband?
married.
Oh, he was a man you knew.
No, we were married.
Oh,
We've been
you
married
were?
for forever.
Oh, okay. Okay. With her husband, they decided to hike the Appalachian Trail. The whole thing, from stem to stern. And Brittany decided she wanted to chat with us about how to do it, why to do it, pluses and minuses, where to hide your poop, all that stuff. And so we're going to do a whole little series about that stuff. And I have to tell you, this is one of those things that I am absolutely fascinated about, super curious about. I would probably want to do it for like 3 hours and then I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. I just know me well enough to know that. I would get super excited about it and then I just don't think I could do it anymore. So I think a lot of you are in my same shoes, but I hope that some of you jump into Brittany's shoes and who are excited about it, but want to get some real firsthand knowledge about how to do it. So hello, friend. How are you?
Hi, Kelly. I'm doing well. How are you?
I have to say, I'm better that you're here. I really am.
It's a lot of fun to be here talking with you about a topic that I really care about, and it's a lot of fun. While I do care deeply about my work in housing, it's often not the most fun topic. So this is great to be able to take a trip down memory lane and talk about something that I do outside of work.
So you married this wonderful man and you're sitting around on a Saturday, let's say, and you're thinking to yourself, we could go to a concert. We could go on a picnic. We could go to Red Rocks, or we could go on a 6-month hike together. Why was that the choice? Like, why did you choose that?
Well, yes, it is not the most orthodox of decisions to make.
No.
But both of us grew up camping, have always loved the outdoors. For a couple of years there, I lived very close to the Appalachian Trail up in Mechanicsburg, and it's something I've been familiar with. But one night we found a documentary, because we are that kind of nerd, and decided to watch a documentary on the Appalachian Trail and turned to each other and said, you think we could do this? Like, maybe. So it just kind of sat there percolating in the back of our brains for a while, and eventually the timing worked out. We were both graduating from grad school. We had both kind of reached a good point in our careers that we felt like it was time to leave our current jobs, and the stars aligned. So we decided about a year ahead of time that we were going to give it a try when we graduated, and kind of worked from there to prep and get ready and think it through. And then we hopped on a plane and just went ahead and did it.
Okay. So, okay. You watched a documentary and then you decided to do it.
Okay, so there were a couple steps in between. So we did a couple backpacking trips together. I had grown up with a youth group that liked to go backpacking, so we would do weekend trips.
Oh, okay.
I did car camping with my parents. My husband had done camping and hiking with his friends, so we've always loved the woods. So we probably did a 4-day trip up in northern Pennsylvania to test it out. We had these super old packs. They probably weighed like 70 pounds. Put everything in the kitchen sink in there. Still had a great time. Ran into a fun rainstorm, thunderstorm. Found a whole bunch of rattlesnakes and decided, you know what? This seems like fun. Let's give it a shot.
I think it's hilarious that you did a 4-day hike, or like, so you had like a tent, you had a tent, 2
Mhm.
old backpacks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were in 4 days, and you were like, we could definitely do 6 months.
When you say it like that, it does sound like some hubris, doesn't it?
Well, okay, so I never really thought that it took 6 months. And to be totally fair to all of our viewers, when Brittany sort of like proposed this idea to me, and I said, well, how long did it take? And she said to me, it took 6 months. And my jaw hit the floor because I thought, how in hell can you do it? Can you camp for 6 months? Because at some point it's cold. And then she said to me, well, you start in like April and you go to like October. And I thought, well, that seems foolish, but that's what you do. That's what you do. So
Yep, and it takes a lot of people different amount of times. I think the fastest known record is somewhere around 46 days. Now that's 46 days to do almost 2,200 miles. So you're doing 50, 60 mile days. Now that wasn't the experience that I wanted, because I like to sleep and sit occasionally and take my time, see some things. But
wow.
A pretty common motto that you'll find among thru hikers on the Appalachian Trail is hike your own hike. There are a million ways to explore the Appalachian Trail. You can go out there and have a lovely 15-minute hike, come home refreshed, and that's your experience, and that's wonderful. You can take 6 months. You can sprint the whole Appalachian Trail if that's something that your body can do. Yeah. But I think there's a value of spending any amount of time that you want to spend out there and on any trail you want to. Let's be honest, the AT, while it's one of the most well-known trails in the country, is not the only trail. And there's lots of gorgeous spots to visit anywhere you would choose to hike. Even in our own county, there's lovely spots. But I am a huge proponent of getting physical exercise as your body allows, getting some fresh air, hearing the birds, feeling the wind on your face. I think especially coming from, occasionally long, stressful days, it's really, really beneficial to my well-being to take that time away to refresh. And there's no better way to do it in my book than to take 5.5 months, but that's not feasible for everyone. So take whatever section you can, do whatever part works for you. There's parts that are wheelchair accessible, which I think is fantastic, because I think everyone. Yep, actually some of the highest peaks are wheelchair accessible. So you can actually go up to Mount Washington, which is up in the north.
Yeah,
and then there's Clingman Dome.
I've been up to Mount Washington.
Yeah, so you can drive up, you can take the train up, you can walk up. You've got options.
Oh, I guess I didn't think about. Okay, so I've been up to Mount Washington in my car. But
yeah, that's the Appalachian Trail. You probably stepped onto it without even realizing it.
I didn't realize it was part of the Appalachian Trail. Oh, that's for those of you who don't know where Mount Washington is. It's in New Hampshire, and that peak gets some of the wildest weather in the lower 48. It has some of the highest gusting winds and some of the deepest snow and some of the coldest temperatures, and it's not it's not a peak that you take lightly if you are going to be out in the elements. I couldn't
Absolutely.
imagine.
That is one that deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah.
I tried to summit it one day, got blown over a couple times, turned back around and said, nope, I'm doing this tomorrow. And thankfully, the staff at the hut there were very gracious, allowed me to crash on the dining room floor for the night and try again for the morning. The next day was gorgeous. Bright blue sky, 100-mile view. It was stunning. So I actually got to enjoy it rather than fearing for my life on 7 miles of trail above tree line in very shady weather conditions.
Wow. Wow. So I grew up camping, but my camping experience was in tents and pop-ups, and you go to the, like, I don't know, I guess like the camp office bathroom hut place for showers and bathrooms. So and like there was like a running water, and I don't think we didn't have electricity. But there was like a spigot in our campsite. I've never had to haul my own water or bury my own poop. Okay, with one exception. My mom and I and her best friend and her son, when I was very little, I was probably 3 or 2 or 3. The 4 of us went out to Yellowstone on like a girls and kids time.
Yeah.
And well, let's just say my mom's friend's son, Patrick, is a boy, and he peed outside because boys can do that easily. And I thought that girls could do that just as easily. And let's just say my socks and shoes had to be replaced.
It takes some practice.
Yeah, I learned quickly that, yeah, you gotta really do things differently. And so after that, my camping was different. So I've never had to do all of that other kind of stuff. So is it a big shift from like sort of my kind of camping to your kind of camping?
It is a shift. And I grew up very similarly to you. Like, we went to Pennsylvania state parks, and we usually had a site with electricity. My parents had a pop-up for the longest time before they got a travel trailer, which they would pull behind their Jeep. And so we had a lot of creature comforts while we were camping. You know, we would eat good food, we'd play games, we would pack all the books we wanted. And that's a great way to camp. That's a really great way to relax and spend a lot of fun quality time with your loved ones, and just enjoy being outside. But I think backpacking has its own special magic to it. You know, you pare down. You definitely don't want to bring as much stuff as you want, because that will change the nature of your hike. But just being able to step a little bit further away from people, hear a little bit more of the nature, feeling just a little bit more alone out there, there's a magic to it. And I think it's really beautiful and a really great way to connect with any loved ones that you can persuade to join you.
What do you do if you need stuff?
Well, you want to prepare well. So you want to plan ahead, know what you're capable of or what you think you're capable of, and make sure that you know your route. So my recommendation is don't plan to do a 20-mile day your first day out. Like that's a good recipe for not doing so well. So maybe do a couple miles in, a couple miles out. That way you can just pack your food and water for one night. Your clothes, your sleeping bag, your tent, the gear that you choose to bring. And that'll give you a way to kind of ease into it. So that way you're not under a certain amount of pressure to reach a certain spot, to make a certain mileage, to get back to your car. If you go out and back, it's pretty reasonable. But you don't need all the fancy gear. Let's be honest, backpacking can be expensive. You can easily drop $500 on your backpack alone, not to mention your tent, your sleeping pad, your sleeping bag, your cooking stove, your water filtration system. So there are a lot of ways you can cut corners, use gear that you have, borrow it from friends and family that you know like to hike. If you're hiking with a group, you might be able to share a water filter or a stove, sleep a couple people to a tent. That will decrease the amount of gear that you have to get, but it's also going to reduce the amount of weight that you have to carry. But in general, you don't need as much stuff as you think you're going to need. So maybe you don't need a full change of clothes for the next day. Maybe you just want to change your socks. You know, it might not be the end of the world if you get a little bit chilly. When the sun goes down, you're probably going to want to hit the sleeping bag anyway. So you might not need all of the stuff you think you're going to need. But make sure you've got the basic safety stuff. A really small first aid kit's good. It's good to have a fully charged cell phone, especially if you're going to a place where you know you're going to have reception just in case something happens. Make sure that you've got a sleeping bag and a tent that are rated for the weather that you're going to be in. It's good to have a map and a compass or a guidebook, depending on what you've got. And make sure that you've got food and water and a way to filter your water if you need to pick up more water on trail. Because let's be honest, a beautiful mountainside spring stream may look crystal clear, but you never know what animal is pooping upstream. So it's a recipe to get very uncomfortable very quickly. So I would always recommend either you've got bleach drops or iodine tablets, a water filtration system. You can get ones that aren't that expensive.
Yeah.
But know that there's trade-offs in anything that you choose to carry out there. If you get something that's very expensive, you can likely get something that's very lightweight. It might not be the most durable because it's made of materials that you're just trying to maximize the amount of weight you can shave off of your pack. So that's really the goal there. So when I was packing and trying to figure it out, I did a lot of research. I read a lot of blogs on the topic because there's a lot of folks that choose to hike the Appalachian Trail every year. There's typically over 1,000. I forget what the current numbers are. I hiked in 2016, so it was a little while back. But there's lots of people with a lot of opinions on what's best, and you have to know what you can afford. So because I chose to plan it ahead of time, that allowed me some time to save up, to look for sales, to do some research, figure out, you know what, I can probably just go with the Target brand shirt because that's not as important, but I want to get a decent sleeping bag because I hate sleeping cold.
Oh, okay. So you evaluated what you can live with and or what you can tolerate and what you can't tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
like you gotta like I know I would have to get good shoes, like good boots, because I hate foot pain. So
I have the wimpiest feet in the world.
Yeah, so
like
you gotta figure
if I walk a mile in wet socks, like I am done.
Yeah.
So it took me a little bit of trial and error, and eventually I found that Oboz shoes worked really well for me. And that with a double set of wool socks, that generally did me okay. There were times when I literally duct taped my entire foot to keep from rubbing blisters, because that's something that people do when they're on the trail from time to time. I wouldn't highly recommend it in other situations, but it kept me walking until I could get to town and rest my feet, air them out, and let them heal. But you're right, good shoes are very important for certain individuals. Other people, like my husband, I mean, he got maybe 2 blisters the entire trail.
Yeah, so
I
he's
mean,
got like, right, he's got feet made of steel, so he's got different needs.
yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
he couldn't skimp on the amount of food that he was packing.
Right.
If he got too hungry, his body just stopped working and he just was like, I need food. And I'm like, well, okay, here's half of the chocolate bar and let's resupply in town. Whereas I was fine hiking on less food and that worked for me. But everyone's body is different. Everyone's comfort level is different. Everyone's tolerance level is different. There were a number of people that I saw on trail that didn't carry any kind of a cook stove. They would either just eat trail mix or cold mashed potatoes, cold instant mashed potatoes. And that was worth it to them to be able to go lighter, to go faster. And that was the experience they wanted. I am someone that would really love a hot cup of coffee in the morning, every single morning. If you want to spend any time around me, that's important. So we chose to carry a cook stove and some instant coffee, and that was a choice that we made.
Huh. And you've talked about being in town, and I know I might be wandering a little, but I'm just gonna go where this leads because I'm just super curious. So I guess because I don't know the map as well, and I think at some point we'll share the map so that we can see where all those parts are. But how often can you go to a town? I guess, like, are there towns like accessible enough that you can still be sort of like on task? I guess it depends on how long you want to be hiking the trail, right? I guess.
Yeah. Well, the Appalachian Trail runs from Georgia to Maine. So there's a pretty wide diversity of areas you go through. There are some areas in the mid-Atlantic where you're going by a little farm side stand almost once a day. And you can stop in and grab some food and you don't really have to carry much and it goes right by it on the way through town. There's an area up in Maine called the 100 Miles of Wilderness where you don't see anyone for 100 miles.
Huh.
There's literally one road that goes about halfway through and that's about it. And you need to plan to schedule a food drop off if you want food there, or you can just go straight through if that's what you want to do. So there are a couple ways to resupply and to rest and to get showers and things like that. All of the things that can make all of the difference on a really bad day of hiking. So there are some folks that choose to plan out all of their food ahead of time and get it mailed to them at drop boxes.
Wait, really?
Basically like rural post offices. So you just package everything up, make sure everything's dehydrated and shelf stable, and have a loved one send it to you every couple weeks and you're good to go. Excuse me. Most folks would choose to pick one up at least once a week, because if you're carrying much more food than that, your pack is going to get real heavy. Other folks would choose to not get anything sent to them and just get food along the way and be flexible, see what you find. Sometimes you're restocking in a Dollar General, other times it's a gas station, other times it's a fully fledged grocery store. But there are a lot of folks that have hiked this trail, and especially in recent years, there have been a lot of guidebooks and blogs and things that can help you plan it out and at least get a sense of how you're going to do it.
I have to say, I had never thought that you could mail yourself a food package in different locations.
Yep. So we had a couple that we did. We didn't do that very much. There were maybe 2 that we had planned out in advance. A couple of times friends were like, hey, can we send you something? We really want to support you. So I said, sure, let's do it this way. So that was great. But for the most part, we just kind of got food as it went along. We would plan out, as you're looking ahead, going into town. Okay, how many days do I need to resupply for before I get to the next town? The AT is very much a mental thing, even more than it's a physical thing. Like you have to, what I found was super helpful is not to think about, well, okay, I'm starting at Georgia and I've got 2,200 miles to go. Like that is incredibly daunting and doesn't feel like something that I could ever do. But if I say, okay, I want to do 5 miles until lunch, that feels like something that's reasonable. Or 3 days, I can stop in town and get a pizza. Like that can be really good motivation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So breaking it down into a couple, like a long weekend each time and having something that you can do, whether, I mean, there are folks that never stayed inside throughout their entire time on the trail. They would always stop in town, get their stuff, go back out, bathe in a stream, do their thing. That's amazing. And I have so much admiration for them. That wasn't the experience that I wanted to have. So my husband and I would stay in hostels, in motels along the way from time to time, just to let our bodies recuperate from what we were putting them through. So having a hot shower and a warm, dry bed for the night, sometimes that's what you need.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because there's a part of me that's like, dude, man, the ground is lumpy and hard. I just can't even, like, I have slept on the ground once, and that's unless I am forced to, I ain't gonna do it again. I'm sorry. It's just not part of my, it's just nope. So, that's really good to hear that you recognized that that wasn't going to be part of what you were going to do, that you said, we're going to do this, but we know that we have to make some concessions for our own sanity.
And that took a lot of communication too. It's not the sexiest thing, but sometimes saying, you know what, this isn't working for me. We're a hiking team, and if I want to go do a 20-mile day, but my partner is like, nope, I can't do it today. It's not in the cards. Like we have to listen to each other and figure that out. Because otherwise it's one or both of us are going to be very unhappy. And the likelihood that one of us is going to get injured, is going to make stupid decisions, is going to throw in the towel because it's just not working.
Yeah.
It's so likely. And it turned out that my husband and I were really great hiking partners. I was the one that was ready to go. I had a plan. These were the number of miles we're going to do each day. This is what we're going to do. We've got a spreadsheet. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's going to be great. And my husband was like, no, wait, no. Like, you're human. You need to take a break. Let's listen to ourselves. Let's make this something that we actually enjoy.
Right.
We've joked, if he was in charge of the whole trip and I had no say in it, he would have had a great time getting to like North Carolina and would have stayed at a hostel for the next 3 months and would have had a grand old time. I probably would have gone right ahead and did 25-mile days for the first 2 weeks and broken my ankle and been done with it. So either way, we probably wouldn't have made it if we didn't have the balance, if we didn't have that communication of listening to each other's needs. And let's be honest, there were still bad days and there were still bad weeks.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're over it and you're not sure why you're doing it.
Yeah.
But it's, it's all part of working through it and figuring out why you're there, why you're with your partner, and what you want out of the experience.
That's fascinating. Everyone talks about that the real test of a relationship, well, before COVID was, take a trip with this person and see how you do. And then when COVID hit, a lot of people were like, oh no, COVID is the test of your relationship to see how you do. And, and there were a lot of people who have broken up during this because it was a real test. And I think that that's fascinating. I think maybe hiking the Appalachian Trail is the real test of a relationship. That's fascinating because you you proved that. You proved how you had to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You had to
And it
compromise.
took back and forth, and it took time, and we didn't get it perfect,
Mhm,
but I think we did it well.
mhm, mhm. Wow. Wow. I'm like imagining some of what the like conversations may have been of, oh no, we're going 25 miles today. Honey, let's relax. I mean, I think we've all had 100 different versions of what those conversations are, and whoever was on whichever side of what that was like. And that's fascinating to me. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I think, to be honest, about half of our conversations were about, you think there's gonna be Mexican food at the next town? And the other half was like, what do you think our cat's doing right now? Like, when you're spending that much time with your significant other, you run out of a lot of the usual topics, and it gets real
Right.
weird, but
Right.
it's a lot of fun.
Right. Right. And and it goes down to just those base needs.
Mm-hmm.
And right. I've had those moments where you can see the other person as a cheeseburger. You don't see the other person as a person, you see them as a cheeseburger, and you're like, wow, they're delicious. You know what I mean? And you're like, I wonder if they taste as good as they look. You know, you have that moment because you're hallucinating. Yeah.
You would fit in great on the trail, Kelly.
You're like, trail mix, nope, cheeseburgers. Oh, that's so awesome. So okay, I have one more question just for because it just popped into my head and I have to get it answered or else I'll just forget. What did you like read what did you do at night? Did you like read a lot? Like, did you
Well,
like I don't know why it popped into my head. Like, did you like you didn't have like games and stuff? Like, did you like bring a PS2 or I don't know, like I don't know what the numbers are of those things. Like, you know, like some people like to game and stuff like that. Like, did you like read and like you're documentary folk? Like, what did you do?
well, they say that hiker's midnight is 9 o'clock. So typically there
Oh.
weren't folks that stayed up real late because your body is just done after a day full of hiking. But we did bring a Kindle along. That was one of the things that we said, you know what, it's going to be worth the extra weight in our packs. And we ended up sharing it. So sometimes it would mean that one of us was reading while another one was sleeping or listening to a podcast. Sometimes we read out loud to each other, which is super cheeseballs, but it was a lot of fun.
I like that.
Podcasts were great. A great way to spend time. I know some people brought along art supplies or a small ukulele and did music. We didn't do that kind of stuff. We brought journals, which was great too. But for the most part, you're pretty tuckered out at night, and there's not a whole lot of excitement. The first week of the trail, everyone was doing campfires and staying up and all of that. There's all that jazz. But usually after you get settled in, you just follow into a routine. You get to camp, you put up the tent, string up your bear bag, cook your dinner, then string up your bear bag, and that's that.
And was it just you guys or were you with other people?
So there are a lot of folks that find a trail family or groups of people that they want to hike along with. There were a number of folks that we would come into contact with every now and again. Like, we would see each other every couple of days, like just meet up as one of us is resting for lunch at a campsite. And that was really fun to meet new people, to get to talk to them, learn about their lives and why they're out on the trail. But for the most part, Christian and I hiked alone, just the two of us together. It was just a little bit simpler to be able to set our own pace on how we felt for that day. Whereas if the more people you're hiking with throughout the day, the more negotiation there is with that.
Yeah, I wasn't because you mentioned that there were like about 1,000 people who sort of do it. So I didn't know. I mean, yeah, it's a long distance, but it's also a lot of people. So I didn't know if you like see people.
You do, especially if you go northbound, which is how 90% of the folks hike the trail. Most folks start in Georgia and end up in Maine. There are folks that start up in Maine and hike down to Georgia. And there are some that flip-flop that do it in every different chunks in different directions, however they want to do it. There's lots of different ways to do it. We had a late start to our hike. We were finishing up grad school, so we couldn't leave as early as most folks. A lot of folks got on the trail in February or March to get started, to have enough time to hike at whatever pace they wanted to get up to Maine. So we weren't with the biggest groups on the trail. There weren't as many folks that were starting out around the time that we were, but that meant that we got to meet a lot of people that were out on weekends and for a long weekend, maybe just hiking for the afternoon. The great thing about those folks is, you know, they'll often share snacks with you, but you can also kind of catch up on the news, see what they're up to, and just to get another perspective. Because it can get a little boring talking to folks that just want to talk about how much they're going to eat when they get to town or how much their feet hurt. You know, it can be good to have another perspective.
I never thought about that before. That's fascinating. That's very cool. So we're going to be with Brittany again. We're going to learn more stuff, how she prepared, what it was like on the trail more, and lots of fun stuff. So stay tuned for another few episodes, and we will chat more about her 6 months, 5.5 months on the Appalachian Trail. Thank you so much, Brittany. This was really fun.
Thanks, Kelly.
See you, everybody.
Bye.